Ladies, let's talk. You are a queen, a woman of value, and you deserve a love that is reciprocated, healthy, and fulfilling. But sometimes, without even realizing it, you may be doing things that make you look desperate in dating things that push good men away and attract the wrong ones. Desperation doesn't just come from words, it's in your energy, your actions, and the way you carry yourself. A man can feel when you're operating from a place of fear rather than confidence, and that changes how he sees and treats you. So let's break down the 7 ways women make themselves look desperate and what you can do instead. When a woman over pursues a man, she unknowingly shifts the natural dynamic of attraction. Men are wired to pursue, to put in effort, and to feel a sense of accomplishment when they win over a woman they truly desire. But when a woman takes on that role and constantly initiates contact, plans dates, and keeps the conversation going without allowing him to step up, she removes the challenge and mystery that spark genuine interest. A man who is genuinely interested in you will naturally make an effort to communicate, see you, and invest in the relationship. When a woman is always the one reaching out first, calling, texting, and ensuring things move forward, it can come across as needy rather than confident. Over pursuing also sends the message that she is more invested in the relationship than he is, which creates an imbalance. If a man knows that no matter what he does, the woman will always be there, always initiating, and always working to maintain the connection, he may start taking her for granted. He doesn't feel the need to put in much effort because she is already doing everything to keep the relationship alive. This often leads to situations where the woman feels like she is chasing a man who is only giving her the bare minimum in return. She might make excuses for his lack of effort, thinking that if she just tries harder, he will eventually appreciate her more. But the reality is that her chasing only lowers her value in his eyes. Men are naturally drawn to confident women who know their worth. A woman who over pursues may unintentionally communicate that she lacks self assurance or that she is afraid of losing him. This creates an energy of desperation rather than attraction. When a man feels that a woman is too eager to secure a relationship with him before he has even proven himself worthy of her, he may start to pull away. He may even lose respect for her because he doesn't feel the need to step up and show his interest in a meaningful way. The key to healthy attraction is balance. Both people should be putting in equal effort, meeting each other halfway, and allowing the connection to grow naturally. A woman who values herself doesn't need to over pursue because she understands that the right man will match her energy. She knows that if a man is genuinely interested, he will take the initiative to call, text, and make plans. She allows him the space to show his interest instead of forcing the connection. When a woman stops over pursuing and instead leans back into her feminine energy, she allows the right man to step up and show his true intentions. A man who is serious about her will put in the effort, and if he doesn't, then she knows he's not the one for her. By letting things unfold naturally and refusing to chase, she creates an atmosphere where mutual respect, desire, and attraction can flourish. When a woman ignores red flags in a relationship, she sets herself up for disappointment, frustration, and heartache. It often happens when she becomes emotionally attached to the idea of what she wants the relationship to be rather than seeing it for what it actually is. Instead of acknowledging the inconsistencies, the lack of effort, or the clear signs that a man is not fully invested, she convinces herself that things will change with time. She makes excuses for his behavior, rationalizing why he doesn't call, why he's distant, or why he treats her in a way that doesn't align with her true worth. The problem is that ignoring red flags doesn't make them go away. It only prolongs the inevitable disappointment when reality can no longer be ignored. A man's actions always reveal his true intentions. If he is inconsistent, unreliable, or emotionally unavailable early on, those patterns are unlikely to change unless he is actively working on himself. Many women ignore these warning signs because they fear losing the connection or starting over. They tell themselves that he's just busy, that he's not great at expressing emotions, or that he just needs more time to open up. But in reality, when a man values a woman, he makes it known through his actions. He doesn't leave her questioning where she stands or making excuses on his behalf. When a woman ignores red flags, she often ends up investing more energy into proving her worth to a man who is showing through his behavior that he doesn't truly appreciate her. Ignoring red flags is also a sign of a deeper issue, fear of being alone. Many women stay in situations where they know they are not being treated well because the idea of being single feels worse than tolerating inconsistency. They believe that if they just hold on a little longer, he will change or he will eventually see her value. But a man who takes a woman for granted and gets away with it has no reason to change. He continues to do the bare minimum because he knows he can. The more a woman tolerates, the more she teaches him that he doesn't have to do better. It's only when she sets boundaries and refuses to ignore the warning signs that she puts herself in a position to attract a man who is truly ready to show up for her in the way she deserves. Every woman has intuition, that inner voice that tells her when something isn't right. The problem is that many choose to silence it because facing the truth is uncomfortable. The truth might mean walking away from someone she hoped would be the one. It might mean letting go of a situation she has already invested time in. But ignoring red flags only delays the pain, it doesn't eliminate it. The sooner a woman acknowledges the signs, the sooner she can make decisions that align with her self-worth. When she stops justifying poor behavior and starts demanding better for herself, she shifts her energy and attracts relationships that reflect her true value. When a woman agrees with everything a man says just to avoid conflict or gain approval, she loses a sense of her own identity in the relationship. Many women do this subconsciously because they believe that being agreeable will make them more attractive or likable. They fear that disagreeing might push him away or make him think they are difficult. But in reality, constantly agreeing with everything he says doesn't create a deeper bond. It creates an imbalance where she is not showing up as her true self. A man who is looking for a meaningful relationship wants a woman who has her own thoughts, opinions, and perspective. If she is always going along with whatever he says just to keep the peace, she is not giving him the opportunity to connect with the real her. When a woman suppresses her true feelings and opinions, she starts to mold herself into what she thinks he wants rather than standing in her own truth. She might pretend to be interested in things that don't excite her, agree with viewpoints she doesn't actually believe, or hold back from expressing her concerns when something bothers her. This kind of behavior doesn't create real compatibility. It creates an illusion of harmony that isn't built on authenticity. In the beginning, it might seem like things are flowing smoothly because there's no conflict, but over time, the lack of depth and real connection starts to become apparent. A man who truly values a woman is not looking for a carbon copy of himself. He wants someone who can challenge him, bring fresh perspectives, and engage in meaningful discussions. Being agreeable all the time can also create resentment. A woman who consistently prioritizes his opinions over her own will eventually feel unheard, unseen, and unappreciated. She may start to feel like she's losing herself in the relationship, and over time, this can lead to frustration and emotional exhaustion. She might begin to wonder why she isn't getting the love and appreciation she desires, not realizing that she has conditioned the dynamic to be one-sided. By not expressing her true self, she has unintentionally communicated that her needs and desires are secondary. This kind of dynamic does not lead to a fulfilling long-term relationship. It leads to dissatisfaction where she feels undervalued and he doesn't truly know who she is at her core. A woman who is confident in herself understands that disagreements and different opinions do not mean incompatibility. In fact, they can lead to deeper conversations, mutual growth, and a stronger connection. She is not afraid to voice her thoughts, set boundaries, and express her true feelings because she knows that a man who genuinely cares for her will respect her individuality. Instead of seeking approval, she stands firm in her beliefs while also being open to discussion. This balance between confidence and understanding is what creates a dynamic where both individuals feel seen, heard, and valued. When a woman stops agreeing with everything just to keep the peace and instead embraces her authentic self, she sets the foundation for a relationship that is built on respect, mutual appreciation, and true connection. When a woman moves too fast emotionally and rushes the relationship, she often does so out of a deep desire for connection, security, or validation. She may meet a man and instantly see his potential, imagining a future with him before truly getting to know him. This emotional acceleration can cause her to overlook important details about his character, values, and true intentions. She may assume that because there is an initial spark, it must mean he is the one, leading her to invest emotionally before he has even shown through consistent actions that he is worthy of that level of commitment. While it's natural to be excited about a new connection, rushing things can create pressure that may push him away rather than bring him closer. A man typically moves at a pace that allows him to process his emotions and develop a connection over time. When a woman rushes the relationship talking about the future too soon, expecting commitment before it naturally develops, or placing heavy emotional expectations on him, early on he may feel overwhelmed. Instead of allowing the relationship to unfold naturally, she tries to control its direction, fearing that if she doesn't secure his commitment quickly, she might lose him. But the truth is, a man who is genuinely interested will pursue at a pace that feels comfortable for both people. When a woman forces a relationship to move faster than he is ready for, it creates an imbalance where she is emotionally ahead of him, making it difficult for a true partnership to form. Rushing a relationship can also lead to emotional dependency. A woman who quickly attaches to a man may begin to rely on him for validation, happiness, and security. She may believe that her worth is tied to his level of interest, leading her to seek constant reassurance about where they stand. This kind of dynamic can feel heavy for a man, making him feel more like a source of emotional stability rather than an equal partner in the relationship. Instead of naturally developing a bond based on trust and understanding, the relationship becomes about meeting emotional needs in an urgent way. This urgency can make her appear needy rather than confident in her own value, and instead of drawing him closer, it may cause him to withdraw. A woman who truly values herself understands that real love takes time. She doesn't need to rush because she knows that a man who is serious about her will show it consistently. She takes the time to observe his actions, ensuring that his words align with his behavior before investing deeply. She enjoys the process of getting to know him without forcing a future before it's meant to happen. When she allows things to unfold naturally, she creates space for a genuine connection to form, one that is built on mutual effort, emotional balance, and true compatibility. By embracing patience, she empowers herself to attract a man who values her just as much as she values herself. When a woman constantly seeks validation from a man, she unknowingly places her self-worth in his hands rather than recognizing it within herself. She looks to him for reassurance, waiting for his compliments, his attention, or his approval to feel valued. This need for external validation often stems from deeper insecurities, past experiences, or a lack of confidence in her own worth. Instead of knowing that she is enough just as she is, she begins to rely on his responses to determine how she should feel about herself. The problem with this dynamic is that it creates an emotional imbalance where she gives him too much power over her happiness. When a woman operates from a place of confidence, she doesn't need constant reassurance because she already knows her value, whether he acknowledges it or not. Seeking validation can manifest in different ways. It might be through constantly asking if he likes her, if he finds her attractive, or if he sees a future with her. She might overanalyze his words, his actions, or his level of interest, looking for clues to confirm her worth. When he texts back quickly, she feels good about herself. When he takes longer to respond, she starts questioning if she did something wrong. This kind of emotional dependency can make a woman feel anxious and unsettled, constantly waiting for external confirmation that she is enough. The issue is that no matter how much validation she receives, it never truly satisfies her because the real solution isn't in his words, it's in her belief about herself. A man can sense when a woman is overly reliant on his validation, and this can shift the dynamic of the relationship. Instead of seeing her as a confident, high-value woman, he may start to feel pressure to constantly reassure her, which can become exhausting over time. He may also lose a sense of challenge or intrigue in the relationship because confidence is one of the most attractive traits a woman can have. A woman who knows her worth walks into a room without needing to be noticed, and yes, she is. She doesn't require constant validation because she carries herself with assurance, and that energy naturally draws the right kind of attention. A woman who values herself sets the standard for how she is treated. She understands that while compliments and affection from a man are nice, they are not what define her. She is already complete on her own, and any man who comes into her life is simply an addition to what she already brings to the table. Instead of seeking external approval, she focuses on developing her confidence, embracing her individuality, and living a life that fulfills her. She surrounds herself with positive influences, practices self-love, and builds her self-worth from within. When she no longer relies on a man's validation to feel whole, she steps into her power and attracts relationships that reflect the confidence and value she already knows she possesses. When a woman overcompensates in a relationship, she often does so because she believes that if she gives more, does more, or proves her worth, the man will recognize her value and commit to her. She may go out of her way to make his life easier, constantly initiating plans, showering him with affection, or prioritizing his needs over her own. This excessive effort often comes from a fear of losing him or a belief that she must earn his love. But in reality, love and connection are not built through overcompensation. A relationship should be balanced where both people invest equally rather than one person carrying the emotional weight while the other passively receives. When a woman gives too much without allowing the man to meet her halfway, she unintentionally disrupts the natural flow of attraction. A man values what he works for, and when everything is handed to him without effort, he may begin to take it for granted. If she is always the one planning dates, making sacrifices, or bending over backward to accommodate him, he doesn't have to step up because she is already doing all the work. Instead of feeling appreciative, he may start to feel entitled or even less invested because he hasn't had to earn her presence in his life. Over time, this dynamic can create resentment on both sides. She feels unappreciated and he feels less engaged in the relationship. A woman who overcompensates may also ignore red flags or tolerate behavior that doesn't align with her standards. She may excuse his lack of effort by telling herself he is just busy or that he will eventually appreciate everything she is doing for him. She may continue giving, hoping that one day he will see her worth and reciprocate. But love is not something that is forced or bought through effort. A man who genuinely wants to be with a woman will naturally invest in her without needing to be convinced. If she has to constantly prove her value, then she is likely with someone who doesn't fully recognize it. A high value woman understands that she does not have to overcompensate for a man to stay. She knows that a healthy relationship requires mutual effort, respect, and appreciation. Instead of pouring all of her energy into proving herself, she allows the man to meet her at her level. She focuses on living her own fulfilling life, maintaining her boundaries, and giving only to those who truly deserve it. When she stops overcompensating, she shifts the dynamic. The right man will step up and invest because he sees her as someone he wants to be with, not someone he needs to be convinced to appreciate. By recognizing her worth and refusing to settle for one-sided effort, she naturally attracts a relationship where she is valued, respected, and loved for who she is, not for how much she gives. When a woman ignores her own boundaries in a relationship, she sends a silent message that she is willing to tolerate behavior that does not align with her standards. Boundaries are not about controlling another person. They are about protecting her peace, self-worth, and emotional well-being. Yet, many women compromise their boundaries out of fear of being alone, fear of losing a man's interest, or fear of seeming too difficult. Instead of standing firm in what she knows she deserves, she may allow disrespectful behavior to slide, accept inconsistent effort, or tolerate situations that make her uncomfortable, all in the hope that he will eventually change or see her worth. But when a woman allows a man to cross her boundaries without consequences, she teaches him that he doesn't have to respect them. A man observes how a woman carries herself and how she responds to the way he treats her. If she lets him cancel plans last minute, disappear, and return when it's convenient for him, or speak to her in ways that are dismissive or disrespectful, he takes note. He recognizes that there are no consequences for his actions, which often leads to a cycle where he continues to push limits to see what she will tolerate. When a woman lacks firm boundaries, she unknowingly makes it easier for him to put in minimal effort while still receiving her attention, time, and affection. Over time, this dynamic can lead to frustration and resentment because she feels unappreciated, but at the same time, she struggles to enforce the very boundaries that would protect her from this treatment. A woman who respects herself understands that boundaries are a form of self-love. She does not tolerate behavior that makes her feel undervalued, unseen, or disrespected. She communicates her boundaries with confidence, not as ultimatums, but as clear expectations for how she expects to be treated. When a man crosses those boundaries, she doesn't make excuses for him or hope he will change. She enforces consequences, whether that means addressing the behavior directly or choosing to walk away if necessary. She knows that a man who truly cares about her will respect her boundaries because he values her, not because she has to beg him to. Standing firm in her boundaries doesn't make her too much or too difficult. It makes her a woman who knows her worth. The right man will appreciate a woman who sets and upholds her boundaries because it shows she values herself. It also makes her more attractive because she is not seeking validation or settling for less than she deserves. When she refuses to ignore red flags, when she no longer bends over backward to accommodate someone who is not treating her well, she naturally filters out men who are not serious about her. She no longer wastes time on relationships that drain her energy because she has created a space where only those who truly respect and value her can remain. When a woman chases after a man who shows little interest, she often overlooks her own dignity and hopes that by giving more, he will eventually appreciate her. She may continue to pursue him through text, phone calls, or social media, trying to initiate conversations, make plans, or show affection, all the while not receiving the same energy in return. This one-sided effort can leave her feeling unappreciated, frustrated, and emotionally drained, but she believes that if she just tries harder, things will change. However, chasing someone who is not reciprocating can often push him further away, creating an imbalance in the relationship. When a woman chases after a man, she is unknowingly placing herself in a position of need where her worth becomes tied to his attention and approval. She starts to focus more on getting his affection than on building a healthy connection, and this neediness can make her appear desperate rather than confident. The emotional energy she expends in the chase could be better spent on herself, strengthening her sense of self-worth and focusing on her own passions, hobbies, and goals. Men are naturally attracted to women who are not in need of validation, but rather who are already content within themselves and live fulfilling lives. The reality is that if a man is genuinely interested in a woman, he will naturally pursue her, show interest, and make an effort to build a meaningful connection. A woman doesn't have to chase after him, beg for his attention, or constantly make the first move. Instead, she can focus on maintaining her independence and letting him show his interest in a way that is mutual and genuine. Chasing a man often stems from a fear of rejection or a belief that she must prove her worth to him. However, no one should have to prove their value to another person. True relationships are built on mutual respect, effort, and connection. A woman who values herself will never find herself in the position of chasing after someone who does not appreciate her. Instead, she will attract someone who naturally meets her energy and effort halfway. She understands that her worth is inherent. And if a man doesn't recognize that, she doesn't need to chase him. She can let go and trust that someone who sees her value will come along. When a woman finds herself constantly seeking validation from a man, she unknowingly places her self-worth in his hands. This need for approval can manifest in many ways, constantly looking for compliments, seeking reassurance, or trying to impress him with every move. She may feel insecure about her appearance, personality, or accomplishments, and as a result, she relies on him to fill the gaps in her self-esteem. Over time, this pattern can become draining for both parties. The man may feel pressured or even overwhelmed, and the woman may feel as though her worth is entirely dependent on his opinion of her. This creates a fragile foundation for any relationship, one built on validation rather than genuine connection. Seeking external validation can also make a woman lose sight of her own identity. She may find herself changing aspects of who she is, her interests, values, or even the way she presents herself in order to win his approval. The more she seeks his validation, the further she may drift from her authentic self, ultimately leading to dissatisfaction and confusion. Instead of being grounded in her own beliefs and sense of purpose, she starts to mold herself into someone she thinks he wants her to be. True confidence comes from within, not from seeking approval from others. When a woman truly values herself, she does not need constant validation from a man to feel secure. She is comfortable in her own skin, proud of her accomplishments, and grounded in who she is, regardless of anyone else's opinion. This inner confidence is what makes her magnetic and attractive because it radiates authenticity and self-assurance. When a woman knows her worth, she doesn't need to be constantly reassured. Her self-esteem is not dependent on someone else's approval. It is based on her own beliefs and values. When she stops seeking validation from a man, she gives him the space to appreciate her for who she truly is. She allows the relationship to develop naturally based on mutual respect and admiration rather than on the need for constant reinforcement. The right man will be drawn to her confidence and authenticity, not to her need for validation. She no longer feels the pressure to perform or seek approval because she understands that her value is intrinsic, not determined by how someone else perceives her. When a woman becomes overly available and puts the man's needs above her own, she often neglects her own well-being and desires. She may constantly prioritize his schedule, cater to his requests, and drop everything to accommodate him, all in the hope of gaining his affection or approval. This can lead to an unhealthy imbalance in the relationship. where her needs are ignored and her identity becomes wrapped up in trying to make him happy. The more she sacrifices her own time, energy, and aspirations for his comfort, the less likely she is to build a relationship based on mutual respect and understanding. Overgiving without reciprocation can create an unhealthy dynamic where the man may take her for granted. He may come to expect her availability, affection, and support without putting in the same level of effort. The woman, in turn, might feel unappreciated and overlooked because her own needs are constantly sidelined in favor of his. The relationship becomes one-sided where her role is to support and give while his role remains passive. This lack of balance can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and even burnout. By constantly making herself available, she may unintentionally signal that she has nothing else to focus on other than the man. She may lose her sense of self, her independence, and her passions as everything revolves around pleasing him. However, when she fails to prioritize her own needs and desires, she risks losing her sense of worth and confidence. She begins to feel as though she exists only in relation to him and his needs, rather than in her own right as an independent whole person. The healthiest relationships are built on mutual respect, where both partners make time for each other, but also honor each other's individual lives, goals, and passions. A woman who knows her value understands that her happiness and fulfillment come from within, not from constantly making herself available for someone else. She takes time for herself, nurtures her own passions, and sets boundaries that allow her to maintain her identity and self-respect. When she learns to balance giving and receiving, she attracts a partner who values and appreciates her as an equal, and the relationship becomes more fulfilling for both parties.